With the demise of Haman, the villain of the story in the book of Esther, you might think the story has reached its conclusion. But this is a well-crafted story, and there are still some loose ends to tie up. Beginning with today's reading, we'll see a number of events that together form what we might call the Great Reversal. Hello, I'm Stuart Baskin, pastor of First Presbyterian Church of Tyler, Texas. In the ancient world, it was apparently the custom to confiscate the possessions of a condemned person and give them to someone else. That's exactly what happens now. The king, Ahasuerus, gives to Esther the house of Haman, presumably including its contents, his money, and his servants. But that's not all. Here's the next piece of the action, all of which happens very quickly. On that day, King Ahasuerus gave to Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews. And Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was to her. Then the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. So Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. You can see everything that was Haman's now belongs to Esther and to Mordecai, her uncle. The symbol of Haman's authority as the king's chief administrative officer, the king's signet ring, is now put into the hands of Mordecai, making him second only to the king in authority in the entire empire. This really is quite a reversal of fortunes. Only hours before, Mordecai had been marked for execution by the evil Haman. Now he stands at the very pinnacle of power in Haman's place. So maybe this is where the story ends. Not quite. There is one small detail to cover, one small loose end to tie up. For the royal decree that Haman had sent out in the king's name, ordering the destruction of all the Jews throughout the empire, well, it was still in force. This fact was not lost on Esther, who immediately petitioned the king to reverse the decree. Here's what the book says now. Then Esther spoke again to the king. She fell at his feet, weeping and pleading with him to avert the evil design of Haman the Agagite and the plot that he had devised against the Jews. The king held out the golden scepter to Esther, and Esther rose and stood before the king. She said, "If it pleases the king, and if I have won his favor, and if the thing seems right before the king, and I have his approval, let an order be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, son of Hammedatha the Agagite, which he wrote, giving orders to destroy the Jews who are in all the provinces of the king. For how can I bear to see the calamity that is coming on my people? Or how can I bear to see the destruction of my kindred?" Then King Ahasuerus said to Queen Esther and to the Jew Mordecai, "See, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hanged him on the gallows because he plotted to lay hands on the Jews. You may write as you please with regard to the Jews in the name of the king, and seal it with the king's ring, for an edict written in the name of the king and sealed with the king's ring cannot be revoked." This is a pretty important detail, don't you think? It would have been easy to simply assume that since Haman was now dead and the order he sent out in the king's name would then be null and void. But Esther understood that a royal decree, once proclaimed, was still in force until the sovereign, and only the sovereign, revoked the decree with a new decree. The urgency of Esther's plea, then, makes good sense. It didn't matter that Mordecai, whose behavior toward Haman had caused the original decree to go out. It didn't matter that Mordecai was now the king's second in command. On his own, he would have been powerless to prevent the slaughter of the Jews. Only by appealing to the king could Haman's decree be revoked, which fortunately is exactly what Ahasuerus does. He gives complete authority over to Mordecai to write a new decree and seal it with the king's own seal and send it out to all the provinces of the kingdom. With that, Mordecai sends out a new decree. What did it say? We'll find that out in tomorrow's episode when the great reversal continues. But for now, may God continue to bless you and keep you in all that you do this day and in all the days ahead.